actors are currently being punished by their own stupidity. They'll be like, oh no, it's all the studio's fault. But the greedy, seemingly power-crazed attention seeker who's leading the guild seems more obsessed with her own legacy than she does about her own members' ability to work. Of course, the actors' biggest problem is that they were the ones that chose to re-elect her. Of course, running a campaign for the leadership of your guild when you're in the middle of a strike doesn't exactly seem like it's a fair fight at the best of times. No, I'm not one to normally feel much sympathy for the actors. I mean, just look at what they've done.
Imagine there's no heaven.
If actors have only ever taught me one thing, and they have.
Some of the fan base just sickened me to my stomach. You're no Star Wars fan in my mind.
Is that by and large, they seem to absolutely despise the peasants who they rely on for their wages.
The Star Wars fan base really seems to be the most kind of toxic. Star Trek was woke from the beginning, you know?
Yeah.
Snakes, of course.
Because they don't see the customers as the ones giving them the money. They think it all comes from the all-powerful studios.
Like...
Those people.
Very
People that we
awakening
need
them.
to educate.
Love them in the right direction.
So they don't care if they insult the audience, because from their perception, all of their money comes from these strike negotiations every few years. And while you think that would make them even more cautious who they elected as leader, yeah, they really messed up this one, Bob.
Cannot even believe those words just came out of your face towards my face.
But then again, a quick scroll down the Twitter feed of Mark Ruffalo or Mark Hamill will very quickly make you come to one of two conclusions. Either actors who are named Mark just aren't very smart, or it's actors in general who should probably keep their mouths shut when they're not reading from a script. And given the quality of scripts in Hollywood, maybe we'd all be better off if they kept their mouths shut during those as well.
I made sure no genius on genius homicide happened.
I mean, these are people who just can't keep their nose out of any situation on the face of the planet. Oh, look, I made jokes on stage. Better tell you what I think about international relations. I mean, seriously, at this point, the one celebrity whose opinion I want to hear is Mr. Blobby.
Don't touch me.
What do you think about inflation? I need to know. I mean, you have to remember, these are the same intellectual behemoths that come out with things like, I want to make optimistic stuff that make girls want to be excited that they can't do the windmill. I mean, seriously, I don't know why you'd be excited that you don't have dangly bits. It's not something that you've achieved. Oh, look, I'm this due to an accident of birth. Congratulations, from a next trick, I'm going to make you really excited that you've got a nose. I don't know if you've noticed, but so do a lot of other people. You're not special, love.
This carpet is a person with feelings.
If you're going to be excited or proud, at least make it over something that you've done, not something that you happen to be. Unless, of course, you want to make them lazy, good-for-nothing narcissists who go through life simply seeking attention just for existing. In which case, they've got a great potential career as the leader of SAG-AFTRA. Because nobody expected the actor strike to still be going on. While the WGA was striking, they avoided a lot of attention because it was the WGA that was going through the negotiations first. But the assumption was, once the writers' deal got sorted, the actors would be over pretty quickly. That's why when they opened negotiations, they were bargaining with the CEOs. The studios were being serious. They thought if we got the big people in the room, then we offer them a decent deal, they take it, job's a good 'un. Except for some reason, SAG-AFTRA, they didn't want everything to be over so quickly.
Is that a question?
Now, it was interesting that around this time, the Directors Guild was in a bit of damage control, because they settled very quickly and said they got an extraordinary deal, but a lot of their members were actually upset. Because, you know, you should always be very upset when you've actually been allowed to work, rather than forced into unemployment, where you can lose your house. Honestly, I don't know why they're that upset, but they were. There were comments about how the WGA struck for a long time, which meant they got a better deal. And I can't help wondering if SAG-AFTRA thought, yeah, maybe we shouldn't settle that quickly. It gave the WGA great press, and so maybe they thought that they'd enjoy it as well. There was even comments about how all this talk was tantamount to interfering with the SAG talks, that it leaves a stink like somebody is trying to push a SAG deal. And if you're somebody who's incredibly concerned with the legacy that they leave behind, the last thing you'd want is to be a legacy of somebody who settled very quickly, especially when you're at the center of all that attention.
It's afraid. It's afraid!
And after all, I mean, at the end of the day, what do you have to lose? You only do about 2 gigs a year. It's not as if you're going to be losing out on much money in the first place. Because what happened next completely took the studios by surprise when SAG-AFTRA turned down the deal that they were being offered and blew up the idea that this was going to be over very quickly. The strange thing was, the statement that they came out with was that the studio's offer was just worth less than the one they proposed before. They're refusing to do things like protect actors from AI, which is a bit unusual considering they gave the writers those accommodations, and came out with the statement that all they asked for was 57 cents per subscriber. Oh, it sounds ever so reasonable, doesn't it? They only want 57 cents. I'm sure they didn't ask for anything else. And when what they're asking for is ever so reasonable, doesn't it seem harsh that the studios are just walking away from the table? That sounds like normal behavior. It's almost like somebody's only giving you their side of the story and missing out a lot of important information. Ted Sandaros called a levy on every Netflix subscriber. You began to hear about what they were actually asking for, saying that what they were asking for was an untenable economic burden that would cost them more than $2.4 billion over the course of the 3-year contract. When someone says 57 cents and that turns into $2.4 billion, you get the feeling that one side isn't being really honest with you. And just to put 800 million into perspective, the residuals that they currently get are 126 million. Now, this Variety article says that the 57 cents equals 500, but at the end of the day, whether it's a 5 times or an 8 times increase, it's still an insane thing to add into a contract that's going to be renegotiated in another 3 years. What are you going to do? Ask for another 5 times or 8 times increase then as well? Not only are actors already paid extremely well, but when you start asking for 5 and 8 times your wages, maybe it's time to start thinking that you might be unreasonable. Especially for an industry which isn't exactly making a lot of profit at the moment.
Here's to questionable choices.
And that's why all the guild statements look stupid when they start saying that the studios have been engaging in bully tactics. But it actually turns out that they had very productive talks going, and then out of the blue, they just start introducing a levy on subscribers, on top of historic highs in terms of increases across the board, which makes sense. The WGA got the highest pay increases in like 35 years, and now we find out they got offered the same. The studios offered the actors 5%, which is the same deal that the Writers Guild accepted and the Directors Guild, but that's not good enough for the actors. You know, these people.
I stand against hate.
I stand against hate.
I stand against hate.
Every not-so-funny joke.
I'm an American! I'm an American!
Every unfair stereotype.
Of workers taking your trades. Workers who don't sleep, don't tire, don't age.
I take responsibility.
Responsibility.
Instead of 5%, which is just the first year pay increase, they get further increases for second and a third year, they wanted 11%, which is more than the writers got across the entire 3 years, let alone the first. And it's not as if the studios didn't try and negotiate. Rather than saying we won't give you more residuals, they did offer. It was the same deal that the WGA got, that we will pay you bonus residuals if shows attract a sizable viewership. If you get the equivalent of 20% of the platform subscribers, you get paid more money. Perfectly reasonable. You make a hit show, you get paid more. Great. That sounds fair. So why aren't you accepting it? They don't want to be paid based off performance. They want to be paid whatever happens. Even if they make something awful. It's almost like they know what they're making is awful. It's almost like they want the ability to crap on the audience because it's not affecting their payday either way. And the instant the studios try and tie their wages to what the audience thinks, they would rather continue to be unemployed than have to care what the audience's opinion is of them. Maybe they have an idea that they're not exactly popular anymore, which is strange when that's the foundation of your job. But that's what gets me about all of this. This is a very extreme position. When the Writers Guild and the Directors Guild have already accepted similar contracts, why are you being the ones which are unreasonable? Why using such extreme language? Like, what do you call its levy on subscribers? It's preposterous! We just have to fair compensation, fair wages. What are you saying everybody else accepted? Is that unfair? I think if you're asking for double what everybody else is getting, maybe you've gone a little bit too far. Maybe you're the ones being unreasonable. It really doesn't seem like you're negotiating in good faith. And SAG's complaints that this is just the studios don't really hold water when the actors aren't exactly happy with it either. A load of A-list celebrities, you know, the ones who have far more to lose than Fran Drescher does when they're not working, wanted to accelerate the end of the strike by basically giving them money out of their own pocket. They were going to pay more in guild fees, alongside paying lower income members residuals before the higher income members got them. And the total amount they offered was going to be $150 million.
I don't care. Why'd you ask?
That's already doubling the amount of residuals that they currently get, but it's still not enough. With Fran saying that this does not impact the contract that we're striking over whatsoever. Doesn't sound like a reasonable party. Somebody wants to bring an end to the strike and get everyone back to work, which is her only duty. No, it really sounds like somebody who really enjoys giving interviews. They're being the center of attention. I'm leading a charge. This is going to be my legacy. Not the legacy of someone like the WGA that just settled too quickly, but one that stood up, fought against Goliath and won. And there's nobody more dangerous to your career than someone that's willing to burn it just so that they can leave a legacy. And while, yes, thousands of my workers did become homeless, at least we got an extra % deal on those wages. Because you would assume that if you were leading a guild, you'd want your members to be working, thriving, and improving their career. You would welcome people that could act as go-betweens between you and the studios to get a better deal, especially when they're offering you $150 million. But while Fran said, first of all, I want to thank certain members that wield a lot of clout in the business, and that's extremely generous, and we accept that graciously. The only amount of money that actually counts is those from our employer. So in other words, thanks, I really appreciate it. That was a lot of money, but no one cares! It's really not somebody being reasonable.
Make it make sense.
Yeah, it's kind of apples and oranges. So in other words, no matter how much money they gave, it would never be enough. Doesn't really seem like somebody who's interested in the money element of it at all. This is about breaking the studios, as in appearing to have had victory over the studios. To anyone else, money is money, but to this, it matters where the money comes from. And the way she talks, it's always her way or the highway. Because if you're saying no or working away from the table, you're not really in a negotiation. We're waiting for the CEOs to return to the table so we can continue talking. It's like, no, they did their talking. They offered you a deal. It's the same deal everyone else had. And for some of it, you went, I want 5 times that. For others, you said, I want over double. You can't negotiate with people who are unreasonable. You can't negotiate with people who won't move. If everyone else accepts a fair deal and you won't, the problem is you. She even had the nerve to say that the studios not talking to them was illegal. I don't know about the laws of strikes, but it seems to me that if you have someone in your workforce going, I want you to pay me 1,000,000 times more than my current wages, then telling them no, I don't see how that would be illegal. And you get back down to the legacy when she's on about, in your life, it's important to introduce an unprecedented business model. She wants to be somebody who embraces streaming and entirely changes the whole industry. Somebody wants to leave behind lasting change, have their name go down in history as the one that created it. I mean, over here, we'd term it being too big for your britches. But in Hollywood, no, she talks more like a religious cult. Speaking about the A-listers who were desperately just trying to go back to work because they're losing tens of millions of dollars where she gets 2 bit parts a year, she said the executives should not for 1 second think that they can use the goodwill of member emissaries to distract us from our mission. Now, the member emissaries will be the A-list celebrities, but distract us from our mission. Very strange terminology for a business contract. You don't just want to get people back to work. You have a mission. You have an end goal in mind, the transformation of the industry. And don't seem to care how many careers you burn or how many of your own members go bankrupt because you're not allowing them to work. And I think that really takes the biscuit with how she's been leading this guild, because quite frankly, I think it's disgusting. During her re-election campaign, she did say that member unity will be her greatest legacy. And she put a lot of effort into keeping everybody together. But we saw earlier what it looks like to keep everybody together in SAG-AFTRA. When Stephen Amell came out with the most basic of takes, when he said he supported his union, but thought that striking was a reductive negotiating tactic, which it is, by definition, you're not negotiating in good faith anymore because you're adversarial. You've closed down the entire industry. That is extremely reductive. And he even said, but I understand why we're striking, but that was too much for SAG, where the very next day he had to roll everything back and say, no, don't worry, I'll go on the picket line. And when you see me on the picket line, please don't whip hard fruit. You're not even allowed to call striking frustrating or reductive because they will come after you, just like they came after the people that went against the writers' strike. They don't act like a union that's for you. It's like the mafia. If you go against us, we will break you. That's how it seems from the outside, where someone says a minor comment against you, and then the very next day, they're on their knees begging for forgiveness. You have to ask, what happened in the meantime? Because he did go on the picket line afterwards, doing all the photo shoots. Yeah, I'm with the union. Yeah, this is great. But there were some other photos taken which didn't look quite so enthusiastic. So that's how you get member unity. To me, that's what Fran's greatest legacy is. The fact that it's ego, that we crush anyone who even has minor comments against us, because to be unified in such a large group, especially when you're acting against their interests, which is what strike is, you're preventing them from earning money. The only way you can achieve your fabled member unity is by crushing them, forcing them to apologize, bend the knee. What a great legacy that is to go for. Really sheds a lot of light on your mission, because it doesn't seem to be a mission for the actors to get them back to work, to get them more money. You've already been offered a great deal that everyone else already took. So either you're calling all of those idiots for accepting it, or you're playing for more time. And I really don't get the, oh, I'm just a little baby that was born yesterday. I couldn't possibly imagine why everything broke down. The innocent act doesn't work when we know what you asked for. It's just mystifying to me why the studios wouldn't actually negotiate with our unreasonable demands. There are definitely people who benefit, people who are in the public eye because they're causing so much trouble, who will instantly become irrelevant again the moment it's over. They have something to gain from maintaining all of this. It must make you feel really important when you're holding an entire industry to ransom. And this guy's really annoyed because it turns out that while you're not working, you don't get the benefits of working. Strange how that works. Yeah, you think you should be able to shut down an entire industry and just continue to reap all of your benefits that you haven't earned. He's saying that they're pushing out wage increases for the extra time that they've been striking for. Seems very reasonable, actually, doesn't it? You can talk all you want about a fair deal or not selling out your subscribers, demand that everyone else returns to the table, but the longer it goes on and every time you turn down a better deal, it really seems like you're just dragging it out. You've already shown from how you've treated your own members that you don't seem to care about them. You've got offered massive amounts of money from your richer members that were actively sacrificing their own wages just to try and get you to be reasonable. To which you said there is no amount of money that your guild members could offer you that you would accept, because the money must come from your employer. That is apples and oranges. Just so everybody understands, we will not be distracted from our mission. It seems more and more that the mission is just to achieve victory over the studios. It's to make them look like they've been broken. And we're going to keep striking and keep making stupid demands until you accept one of them, so we can prove we beat the WGA and we beat the DGA. I revolutionized streaming. I got something that nobody else could. I've left a legacy. And it really doesn't seem like the guild cares about how many of their careers get burnt in the process, or how many people get starved out or lose their house during the strike. Because if you think that these demands are reasonable, just so in 3 years you can come back and demand them all over again, then I don't think you have any idea about a profit-making business. Businesses and business contracts don't have a mission. A good business deal is where both sides are happy with a mutual exchange of value. And if you're trying to break the opposition, then the best thing that can happen there is you don't make a business contract at all. You walk away from the table and do business with somebody else. And Fran here can make as many statements as she wants about 1 day longer, 1 day stronger, where she literally sees the length of the strike as an ever-increasing victory for herself, as if she's got a target in mind to leave behind the legacy of the longest strike ever, rather than her aim being the shortest strike, where I just get a great deal straight off the bat. No, the more she drags it out, the better she seems to think it is. And maybe that's why, despite her love of legacy and unity, all doesn't exactly seem well when it comes to SAG-AFTRA, as they had scheduled new negotiations and decided, actually, no, I think we're going to postpone it. I think we need more time in order to research your offer. You know, the offer that they just said, no, we want double or 5 times or even 8 times what you're offering. Maybe we should think about it a bit more. That they tried to spin it as, yeah, these things didn't happen, but if that's a good thing. More time. Let us reconsider the proposal that we immediately turned down. Maybe some powerful members aren't exactly happy with you turning that down. Maybe the people losing tens of millions of dollars for every month that you don't have them work are a little bit more annoyed about the situation than someone who gets 2 bit parts a year. Maybe despite some statements that Clooney's group's efforts shouldn't be seen as undermining union solidarity, as long as the CEOs just will not accept what you're demanding because you want $500 million in residuals on top of an increase in streaming residuals and a percentage increase to all of your wages. Maybe you're just asking too much. And if you lose all of your A-listers guild guild fees on top of all that, then maybe SAG-AFTRA isn't quite as strong and unified as they'd like to pretend. Because nothing's changed as far as the studios are, because the A-listers are the pressure campaign. They want to go back to work, even if Fran doesn't. I mean, considering her statements of, I don't need to emulate male energy to be an effective leader, it's like, what do you mean by that? Be a rational businessman, engage logic, and actually care about money rather than your feelings. Actually think about fairness and the well-being of the people you're supposed to represent rather than your own legacy. And how, as far as you're concerned, you just seem to think one day longer, one day stronger. As long as I drag this out forever, I'll get stronger and stronger and stronger, and my legacy will go down in history. No wonder the A-listers are scared. You're costing them millions. They see one day longer, 1 million lost. And the funniest thing is when people say studio should be embarrassed that we're still out here yelling them, it's like, why? You're the ones who are refusing to go back to work. Why should a studio be embarrassed that you're too lazy to get off your ass? No, if you want something embarrassing, it's that this guild under Fran Drescher's leadership are absolutely power-hungry lunatics, even banned Barbie costumes or various different other Halloween things under strict rules that you couldn't dress up as anything from struck work. So basically, any character in all of entertainment you couldn't do. Why? Because you might be advertising them. I mean, I'm sure that Disney are very grateful for the huge amount of money you must be making them if you wear one of their characters to a party. Oh yeah, you wear a Barbie costume to a party this Halloween, and Disney just raking in the cash from that. And of course, this got immediately commented on by the actors in the guild. Like, is this a joke? This is what you're important? We're asking you to negotiate in good faith on our behalf. We're sacrificing for months, get back to the table and get a deal so that we can get back to work, because that's all anyone else wants to do. We want to work. Why are you stopping us? Well, you extend it one day longer, one day stronger for your legacy. Everybody else is being persecuted by you. Ryan Reynolds even came out and said, I look forward to screaming scab at my 8-year-old all night. She's not in the union, but she needs to learn. And I mean, hey, it didn't stop the WGA, who thought that if you wrote anything down, even if you weren't part of the union, you were still a scab, which is quite possibly the most useless insult I've ever heard in my life. Let's all use our collective power to send a loud and clear message to our struck employers. We will not promote your content. Well, we've seen what your collective power looks like. It's one person destroying the career of thousands of people because of legacy. It's when you give somebody power, they use it. And if you love being the center of attention, we just love making up more arbitrary rules for people to follow. And this rule was so ridiculous that even the former president of the guild slammed it. It makes us look petty and incompetent. I mean, to be fair, so does the rest of your marketing, but the last thing Fran needs is to look even more incompetent than she already did before. And the only response they could come back with is, it doesn't apply to anyone's kids. Yeah, and it shouldn't apply to any of the adults. Stop acting like a savage. You know, at this point, the guild has made a huge mistake, as Drescher apparently works to hold the guild together, as she's the one exploding it from the inside on a seemingly delusional power trip, where she's even getting concerned about what people dress up as in Halloween. This is the moment where we don't succumb to pressure. This is the moment where we stand tall, hold firm, and say, I will not dress as Barbie, because I am a serious person who should be negotiating for a business contract for thousands of people. If you ever wanted the perfect reason why you should negotiate your business contracts on an individual basis, it's because the people that end up negotiating you are the ones who don't have a career in the first place. Because if they did, they wouldn't have the time to do this, and they'd want to get back to work, because they'd be losing tens of millions of dollars. Instead, you get somebody who thinks that strikes are better the longer they last. The ones who care more about their legacy than your wages. Because those who can do, and those who can't are more than happy to let everybody else sacrifice their entire lives for their legacy. You'll have to forgive me not believing that you want to get back to work when you're turning down offers that people have already accepted, renegotiations where they keep improving their offer, and you only have 2 tiny parts a year to lose. No wonder the A-listers are pissed. At this point, the only surprising thing is that they haven't kicked you out of your position, because they're more important than you. And despite the, quite frankly, disgusting way we've seen you treat your members already, I have a feeling that people like George Clooney might hold a bit more sway, and are probably a lot more well-connected than you are. But those are just my thoughts. What are yours? Let me know down in the comments below. Like the video if you like the video. Subscribe for more videos like this in the future, and I will see you in the next one. Bye-bye.